In this video, I'm going to focus on creating a static home page for our RealPix application. And to do that, we're going to go into our cursor editor, and in the terminal inside of our dev container, we want to run Rails generate controller. I'm going to call this controller pages. I like to use pages for static pages. You can call it whatever you like. And we're going to make a home action. And then I'm also going to pass in a couple of options. So first, I want to skip routes. I don't want to have it generate the default route. We're just going to use the root route for the home page. And then I also want to skip the helper. I don't like to have helper files laying around empty. I only create them when I need them. Just keeps things a lot cleaner. So generate those files and then open up our routes and uncomment this last line here and update it to point to pages and home. We save that, go back to our Rails application and refresh. Our new home view is now rendering. So now we can start adding some content to this. I'm going to use Tailwind UI, which has actually been renamed to Tailwind Plus, but it has all the same content and everything. I'm going to scroll down to their marketing section and look for their hero sections here. I'm going to scroll down to find something with a background image. That's what I'm looking for there. So I'm going to copy this. And in our home view, we're going to paste that in, save it. And if we go back and take a look at our app, looks kind of funky. So to fix that, we need to go into our application layout file. And I'm going to get rid of these classes in this main tag for now. And now when we refresh, it looks as expected. So next I want to change this background image. The background image that they're using is actually from Unsplash. And I want to draw attention to the parameters on this image. All the way over here, there's this blend parameter. And that value is actually a hex color value. We can learn more about these parameters if we go to the Unsplash website. And click on this menu. If we go to the Developers API documentation, scroll down on the left to the dynamically resizable images section, and you'll see these supported parameters. Notice that blend is not among them, but they do tell you that under the hood, Unsplash uses Imgix. So if we go to Imgix and select Product Documentation, we want to go to their Rendering API. And on the left, go to the Blending section and click the Blend keyword. And it tells you that it allows you to composite a color, text, or another image over the base image. What they're doing here is they're just overlaying a color, and they're using this blend mode parameter to change it to multiply. I believe the default is overlay. And that gives us this image with this nice indigo colored cast to it. Anyway, so what we want to do is we want to get our own image. So if we go back to the home page and look for movie theater, let's try that again. There we go. When you find an image you like, click on it, and if you use the share link, I'm just going to paste that in here. You'll notice that it is not the same. So we need to get this images.unsplash.com host, and to get that, right click on the image and you can copy the image address. And if we paste that in here, you'll notice that we get that images.unsplash.com URL. Okay. So I've already found an image that I like, and I'm going to paste that in here. And when we refresh the page, we've got this nice theater with this rose-colored overlay to it, this deep red. So now we can work on updating the rest of our color scheme to use this red color. If we go to the Tailwind documentation, on the left, find this colors section here, and you can see a list of all the colors that come with Tailwind out of the box. So I'm going to use this rose color. So if we go back in here, we can just do a find and replace. If we want to replace indigo, which is the default for all the Tailwind UI examples, and replace that with rose. Save that and switch back to our applications. Now we've got this icon is rose and our buttons are rose colored. This gray is a little bit cooler, and so let's update that. Actually, if we go back and look at our colors, the gray that is used by default is on the cooler side of things, so we're going to pick a gray that's on the warmer side of things. I'm going to go with this neutral. So we'll look for gray and we'll replace that with neutral. Save that and switch back to our app. Hit refresh, and now we've got this nice warm gray. It just goes a lot better with this warm red color. Okay, the next thing I want to focus on is let's come up with a little icon for our app here. And for that, I'm just going to use Font Awesome to look for an icon. So I'll type in movie. We got this neat little film icon here. I'm actually going to pick the duotone version and the regular weight. You can download the actual SVG code for this. You can download the file itself. I've already done that. So I'm going to switch over to Cursor and open up our images folder. And then I'm going to select the icon and drop it in here. I'm going to rename it to use a more usable. So we'll call it film_icon. Now, if we switch back to our home page and we find where that icon is, scroll up a little bit. Here's our navigation, and there's our image. And it looks like that's in our mobile menu. See if there's another one. Looks like there are two of them. So I'm going to take note of the classes. We have an empty alt tag, but I'm going to delete that, and we'll actually just use Rails helper tag, image tag. We want to use the film icon.svg. And then class was, I believe it was height of 8 and width of auto. And then we had an empty alt tag. So now if we save that and go back to our Rails app and hit refresh, if you look close, you can see that it's there. It's just the default black color, and we want to change that to use that rose color. So I'm going to go back to the Tailwind docs, and we're going to look for rose, and let's go with rose 700. I'm going to copy that color and then go back to, we're actually just going to add it right to the SVG file itself. To do this, I'm going to use some AI help. So I'm going to say I want to add a style tag to color this SVG file using this. We'll send that and have it work on that. It's generating the new code. And now it's provided a diff for us. We can either accept or deny it. We can make changes if we need to. I'm just going to accept it. I am, however, going to do a little bit of cleanup on the indentation. And save. Now we hit refresh. We've got our little logo icon here with that nice red color to match everything else. Now we can move on to some of this content here in the middle. This little news ticker here we don't really need. So I'm going to get rid of that. We can close that and then find that little news ticker. It's going to be down here below the header. Here we go. So I'm just going to delete that whole div tag. All right, that's gone. Now we can update our content here in the middle. Let's use AI again. We'll create a new conversation. Let's try the new ChatGPT preview. All right, so actually let's add this context and see what it comes up with. Write some copy for the main portion of the page. This web application called RealPix allows players to predict how well they think movies will perform at the box office. And at the end of the game, their guesses are scored. They are scored based on the accuracy of their guesses. Predictions. I need a title / heading, no more than 4 or 5 words, and a short description. And let's see what it comes up with. Connection failed, so let's try a different agent. We'll go with the standard GPT-4 and try again. There we go. All right, let's give it a whirl. So we will replace this text with that, and here's our description. Try that again. Paste that in there and take a look at what we get. All right, that looks pretty good. Then there are just a couple of cleanup things we can do with this page. This your company, we can call real pics. Save that. We can actually take this header, and an easier way to copy this is to just collapse it, and then we can cut it out. And then I'm going to replace that with a render. We're going to create a partial called header. Now Rails, when it's rendering a view and it comes across a render command to render a partial, the first place it's going to look is the folder that the view is in. And so this is our home view, which exists in the pages folder here. So it's going to look for a header partial in this folder. If it can't find it here, then it's going to go back up one level until it hits this views folder. And then it's going to look in the applications folder, or the application folder, for that header file. So we could create that. We could create for the entire application header.html.erb. But for now, we're just going to leave that in the pages folder. Paste that HTML in there and clean up our indentation. Hit save, go back to our browser and refresh just to make sure everything is working okay. So everything is looking good here, but I also want to make sure that we have tests. We can see that a pages controller test was created, and because we're running inside of a dev container, we have much better testing facilities, and we can get the new Ruby debugger working as well. I'm going to actually run this. It's going to open up this Explorer on the left, or we can click this to run it. So it did not record any output. That's because there's nothing in here. So to test a controller, there we go. So test should get home. I'm just going to accept this, but we're going to change this page's home URL to our root path. Save that. I'm going to run this again, and it passes. Just to make sure, we can say not found and rerun the test. We can see that it failed. If we want to get more information on that, we can click on this little red banner and we can see why it failed. They expected the response to be 404, but it was 200 OK. So I'm going to close that, undo our little change, rerun our test, and it's back to passing. Now, the one downside about this Test Explorer that I've found so far, and there may be ways to improve on this, is that it only seems to work with one test file at a time. So I'm not sure how to get it to run the entire test suite. But an easy way to do that is to just go to the terminal and you run Rails test, and it will run your entire test suite. So your system test, because running Rails test does not run your system tests. So if we run Rails test :system, we can see that it ran our system tests, but since we don't have any of those, there were 0 runs, etc. And finally, we want to go into Tower and stage all of our changes and say create homepage. Commit that and sign it. And I'm going to push that up. And now we're ready for the next step.